Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And I wanted to go over this light reading article again, and I'll leave a link to it in the description so you guys could check it out. And I wanted to speak on something that I'm going to start questioning why T-Mobile even bought as much as they did. And it's the millimeter wave spectrum. Originally, the way that T-Mobile talked about it was, we're going to deploy it, but we're only going to deploy it in areas where it makes sense, specific use cases in some situations. That's how it was discussed publicly. But we still haven't seen them using it to any scale outside of what they deployed very early on. So now we have two events back to back, big events, right? T-Mobile is the sponsor for one of them, the Formula One race, and they elected not to use it again. And those events are going to be big, crowded events. They're going to be densely small populated areas where, for a venue of that size, millimeter wave would make sense. But per Ulf Edwaldson, he's in charge of the network, they're not going to use it. So that leads me to believe, and I doubt they use it at the Super Bowl permanently, right? They might put some temporary stuff there, like a cell on wheel that has millimeter wave on it. That is a possibility. Not disputing that, but that's not a permanent solution. That's temporary. So that has me starting to believe that millimeter wave is DOA for T-Mobile. Why even have it? For what? In some areas, T-Mobile has like 1,400 megahertz of millimeter wave. For what? Why not start selling it? Why not start leasing it? Whatever, get rid of it. Yeah, you want to use it for fixed wireless access? You don't need 1,400 megahertz to use. 3, 4, 5, 600 is plenty. And again, are you even going to deploy it even for fixed wireless access, right? Those plans, that's just speculation. They say they're looking into it publicly, but that's not set in stone. There is no capital allocation specifically for that right this moment. I was discussing it with somebody earlier. If you look at T-Mobile's whole business as it's structured, if you look at their capital allocation, you look at both OpEx and CapEx, there is no room for millimeter wave. They can't deploy it. Yeah, they can put it on the macro, but they don't have a foundation. They don't have their own fiber to just go and say, okay, we're going to deploy fiber over this entire neighborhood, and that's how we're going to bring the fiber to the nodes, right? And we're going to bring the nodes into those neighborhoods. They would have to always negotiate, discuss with a third party, a leasing partner. They would have to agree to it. They would have to see, okay, do I have fiber close enough to this area? If I don't, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars for me to bring the fiber even to that area. It's just very expensive. And T-Mobile would have to cover that cost up front. A third party is not going to cough up that expense to bring fiber to a random neighborhood just because T-Mobile wants to deploy millimeter wave. Not going to happen. T-Mobile is likely going to have to pay on what it's going to cost that third party to trench that fiber all the way to the neighborhood and deploy it throughout their neighborhood. T-Mobile's going to have to pay that. So from an economic standpoint, it probably doesn't make sense for T-Mobile to deploy millimeter wave. Even if there are some characteristics, even if you can use it in certain situations, like a Super Bowl or a Formula One race, that would be a great use case for millimeter wave. It doesn't make sense for T-Mobile to deploy it. It doesn't seem to make sense for them to deploy it at all. They'd rather go with 2.5 It brings more coverage because when you put one 2.5 small cell, that can cover, a pretty wide area. With millimeter wave, you're going to have to put multiple small cells to cover that same amount of range, if I'm making sense. So again, yes, T-Mobile is still deploying a small cell, so they're still paying what it's going to cost the third party to deploy that fiber. But if you look at it from a financial standpoint, economics wise, right, it has to be accretive to T-Mobile. If they have to go now and deploy multiple small cells and deploy longer fiber to those small cells throughout that entire area just to gain a coverage footprint so somebody can connect to the millimeter wave, it probably makes absolutely zero sense for T-Mobile to even entertain that at all. So just wanted to discuss that in this video, right? Don't even temper your expectations on millimeter wave. Just don't think about it. If you think T-Mobile and millimeter wave in the same sentence, just get that out of your mind, your thoughts, your book. If you have it written down somewhere, just cross it out, because it ain't happening until we start seeing a major change, like them really acting differently about it. Like if we would have saw them like really deploy millimeter wave at these two events, like actual nodes going up, several nodes back to back, then I would have been talking about it differently. And that's what I was kind of waiting on. I wanted to see how they would handle being the sponsor of a major event and then having the Super Bowl in the same area, back to back. It's a few months apart, but still, back to back. And they still didn't deploy millimeter wave. They flat out said no. So that leads me to believe it's DOA. They have absolutely zero plans, even in the 3-year planning, in the POR tool, they have absolutely zero plans to scale millimeter wave. None. And I'm starting to doubt that even in the areas where they did deploy it on the macros, those 8 cities, they may have just done that to get the FCC off their backs because of the licensing. It's possible, right? Because some of the millimeter wave that they own is like in the 42, 49 gigahertz or whatever. There's even no phone support for that type. So I don't even know why T-Mobile bought millimeter wave at all. So again, let me know your thoughts. Like, share, subscribe, follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. See y'all in the next one. Peace.